Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 13th, 2023 Planning Board meeting. And I'd like to get started with the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of the nation,
indivisible,
and justice. And a few announcements to make. Emergency exits are on either side of the room, to your left and right. The restrooms are out the door to the left. Please be sure to sign the attendance sheet if you have not already. It's on the back table. Even if you're speaking or presenting an application this evening. There are business cards back there for contact information to the planning department. Also on the back table are a copy of any resolutions that we will be reading tonight along with the agenda. Please silence your cell phones or turn them off. And if you have any conversations you wish to have with other people, please take it outside. And if you do that, please close the doors so that it doesn't disturb those presenting to the board. And last item is for anyone speaking, please move up to the microphone and speak clearly so that the audience can hear what's being said as well as it gets on the recording. So I got a couple of go-to people here that I'm going to look for signal if they can't hear things. So just a reminder for the board that that's very important. So with that, start with the agenda. Meeting minutes. We have one set of meeting minutes. Lisa distributed from the 9th of May. Do we have any comments, changes? Scott?
No.
Al?
Good.
Okay. So I'll hear a motion for approval of those meeting minutes.
Move.
Ernie moves.
I'll second.
Scott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried 4-0. And Joe Limbeck is not attending this evening's meeting. He's out of town. We've received several items of correspondence for 7200 Rawson Road. David Nenkin, Marcia Senges, Barbara Foley, sorry if I don't pronounce them correctly, and for Drumlins Trail, Bob Witkowski. Boards, committee updates. Ed's here. Anything from the town board?
Just quickly, after a long process, the monument out front has been redesigned and will be officially dedicated tomorrow on Flag Day at 1 p.m.
Oh, great.
That's it.
Thanks, Ed. Kim?
Your next meeting will be June 27th, starting with a waiver request for 7162 Piper Meadows. It's for Stango driveway. Applicant is requesting a waiver from the design and construction standards for the width of the driveway at the right-of-way being 35 feet. And the design and construction standards call for 20-foot standard width. Then public hearings starting with Dish Wireless at High Street at 701 High Street. It's a site plan and special use permit. Applicant is requesting approval to install 3 panel antennas, 3 antenna mounts, 6 remote radio units, jumpers, hybrid cable, and voltage protection device. Again, that's at 701 High Street.
Is that on the tower, the tank,
Yes.
water tank? Tower
Yes.
supply water tank, okay.
Yep, on the tower next to the tank, yes.
Thank you.
Second public hearing is for the Hearn Pole Barn at 218 Hidden Brook Trail. Applicant is requesting approval to construct a 46-foot by 72-foot metal pole barn for personal recreational purposes. The third public hearing will be for the Ortiz fence at 454 Fishers Road. That's in the limited development district. The applicant is requesting approval to install a wooden picket fence, 3.5 feet high, and encompass a 2,700 square foot area in the back of the home. The third public hearing will be for Mobile Graphics at 7120 Lane Road. It's a site plan application. Applicant is requesting approval to demolish a pre-existing barn and construct a 7,400 square foot building to support their existing business operations. And then the last public hearing will be for 117 Victor Heights Parkway for a fence. It's a site plan application at 117 Victor Heights Parkway. Applicant is requesting approval to install a 6-foot-high chain link fence in the rear of the parking lot, which is a site plan modification. And then any carryovers from tonight? And are there any questions?
That meeting is on a Wednesday night? Is
The
that
27th,
7th?
28th.
28th.
Sorry,
Normal
because of
meeting.
Early
actually,
voting.
it's primary day on the 27th,
Yep.
so we had to move our date, yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I
Sorry.
was clear on that. No,
Thanks
you
for
are
the
too.
correction.
No problem. Thanks, Kim. Okay, we have a number of items on the agenda this evening, 8 exact. First item is an extension of time for Stonebrook subdivision, 1403 East Victor Road, Woodstone Custom Homes Incorporated. Applicant is requesting their second 90-day extension of time for preliminary subdivision approval. And I don't know if there's a lot of conversation or debate. Anyone have any questions or concerns about this? Nope. Okay, we do have that resolution, which I will read. Whereas in a letter dated May 23rd, 2023, Woodstone Custom Homes requested a 90-day extension of time for application titled Stonebrook Preliminary Subdivision. Therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Victor Planning Board grants the second 90-day extension of time for Stonebrook Preliminary Subdivision. I'll move. Al moves.
Second.
Ernie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried 4-0. Next item on the agenda, Drumlin's Trail Amendment, Chapel Hill and Burlington. The owner is 7203 Rawson Road LLC. Applicants requesting approval to eliminate the proposed pathway trail between Chapel Hill and Burlington per signed plans for Drumlin's Section 3, Phase 2. Mancini? Good.
Good evening. So the
Better
original,
state your name and
I'm sorry, Steve
All right.
Mancini,
thanks.
7203 Rawson Road. The original plans had this pathway that was leading from the Drumlin subdivision into an adjacent neighborhood, or proposed to do that. The area where it's proposed is highlighted on the map.
This one here, right?
Correct, yep,
Okay, so Drummond, your subdivision is up to approximately here, and then the next
correct.
subdivision is just above there.
Yep. The area that pathway goes through is not exactly the best area for, especially the people in the subdivision who live there, for trying to walk through there. It's wet, it's very buggy, it's tick infested, so forth. The homeowners association some time ago actually decided they didn't want it, and somehow it slipped through the cracks. We thought that was done, but it wasn't. They are also here represented tonight to discuss. They don't want to, I mean, they can speak for themselves, but they really don't want to maintain it and keep it up and have the expense of it and so forth.
And we did have one piece of correspondence from Bob Witkowski regarding that. I think it was in support of removal of the trail. Is that correct?
I have not seen that, so I don't know.
Oh, he wants the trail. Hang on. My mistake. Okay. Thanks, Lisa. In that item, he suggests that the neighborhood connectivity is important and that Drumlin's development should have completed a trail a long time ago. He would not want to let the developer off the hook, or the association, so I guess, are there anyone with questions on the board regarding this application? Al?
I guess my first question was the trail ever implemented? Was it ever installed?
No, it was not.
And again, the reason, after 12 years, 13 years, that it was not installed?
It was in the letter, or in the original design when we were doing it, the area where it is, like I said, it's really not not the best area to put a trail through, and again, and I don't remember when, but some time ago, the homeowners association indicated that they did not want it, and again, kind of slipped through the cracks that we didn't present a long time ago.
Well, I mean, in general, I'm a proponent of connectivity and keeping people off of main roads, and would have been, I think, appropriate to have installed it at the time, and now I could understand why it's overgrown, and if it wasn't the best place at the time, it probably should have been addressed, an alternate concept at the time, so I guess that's my comments at this point.
Anywhere in that area to connect between is either wetland or, I mean, unfortunately, it just never really had a good pathway.
Right. But again, that should have been addressed at the time it was being proposed and approved, so. That's all I have right now, Joe.
Okay. Scott?
I don't have any comments.
Ernie?
Although there's no formal trail there, is it being used anyway?
No, and the homeowners that are here can attest to that.
You know Bob Witkowski?
I do not.
Is
It
he here?
doesn't say where he lives, but,
Question. I'm sorry? I'm asking if he's here. I don't know if
oh,
he's,
okay. Is he?
he'd like to speak for himself.
My name is Kevin O'Connor. I'm the president of the Drumlins 2 HOA, and I'm not familiar with that name either. But he could still live in the neighborhood. We got 114 people, so. But we're not interested. The trail is very wet, like Steve mentioned. It really doesn't lead to an area that residents would probably want to walk to. They can already get to it by walking down Chapel Hill and going up the sidewalk if they choose to walk through that neighborhood. It's very wet down there. I think it's federally protected wetlands. So it's just not a trail that we think would be used, and would seem like long-term for the HOA, it would definitely require a lot of maintenance in order to keep it up.
So the HOA have you discussed it and voted on it, or have
Yeah,
any
the
kind of
board,
formal?
yeah, the board
decision?
voted on it, say, it was probably 6-8 months ago now.
Okay.
And we provided a letter to Steve saying that as the HOA, we were not interested in having that trail completed,
Okay.
knowing that it was a requirement to be done. But, it's not something that I think would be used at all by residents. It is I live right on the edge of where it would be. My house would be the first one. And, it's just it's an area where it's very wet. I look out on the back of it, it's very wet. I know there's a lot of ticks back there because I have in fact got Lyme disease in my backyard. So I wouldn't want to be walking through there myself.
Okay, thank you. As I understand it, I think the trail was originally spec'd out to be like a wood chips
Correct.
trail more than
Yes.
some stone dust or something more
Correct.
permanent, I guess, or at least more durable.
One thing, Al, just to address, we did extend sidewalks along Rawson and so forth for walkability,
So
earlier on.
so the neighborhoods are connected then?
You can
to
come
some
back
type of
out to
sidewalk
the
trail?
main road, there's sidewalks along Rawson now and so forth, so.
Okay. And that's my primary concern, is that there's a safe path between neighborhoods that
Yes.
doesn't require someone to go out on the Rawson Road, so.
Wes, can you bring that up on Google Earth? Or are you looking at the? Yeah. If Susie can give you control over that? Yeah, so go over from Chapel Hill over to Rawson. And this, you're zooming in it. There's a sidewalk from Chapel Hill up to next subdivision. So there is some connectivity there. There's not actually a sidewalk within Drumlins or on Wellington, I don't believe.
We don't have sidewalks in
I
our
was thinking
subdivision.
either development, there's,
Yeah, there's sidewalks just along, so you take the road down,
Yeah.
get on a sidewalk, and at least be off of the main road on a sidewalk to connect the two subdivisions. So if you got kids walking from one side to the other, I don't know if there's any trails through past your subdivision up to
There's the trail, yes, there's the hiking trail past us.
Okay. But that's the Auburn Trail, right? On,
Yes.
Off of Rawson. So they both developments can get down to the Auburn Trail and then up. So,
Well, like I said, that was my primary concern, so I'm not necessarily,
okay.
if the homeowners association doesn't care to have the trail implemented at this point, that I'm comfortable with that.
All right. Well, it's definitely important that the homeowners are backing one, the approach, so. Yeah, sure. Is there anyone in the audience that has a different opinion? Or wishes to speak for or against the proposal? I think this is a formal public hearing, right? Yeah. So, just wanted to give people that opportunity. It's not a public hearing, but that's the best justification we can have is from the homeowners association, I believe, to go forward with this resolution. So, unless I hear objections from the board, we do have a draft resolution. Unless you want to say something else, Steve.
No?
All right. So I have a resolution which is in support of this request. Whereas on September 14th, 2010, the Planning Board approved a final application entitled Drumlin's Townhouses, Section 3, Phase 2, with condition to be met prior to Chairman's signature. Number 4, stating that the pedestrian trail that runs from Chapel Hill Drive to Burlington Road be shown on the final subdivision plan. And whereas on May 10th, 2023, the Planning Board Secretary received the applicant's request to eliminate the proposed trail between the Chapel Hill and Burlington Road. Now therefore be it resolved that the request of Steve Mancini to eliminate condition number 4 of the Drumlin's Townhouses, Section 3, Phase 2, approved dated September 14th, 2010, be approved. And be it further resolved that the Planning Board Secretary distribute the appropriate standard conditions with the Planning Board's approval letter. And I guess I'm thinking maybe we should put a whereas up there, Wes or Lisa, that the Drumlin's Homeowners Association is in support of that request. Just like it within this record, so. Does anyone have any comments, questions, additions?
No.
Okay, so with that slight amendment, I'll entertain a resolution for approval.
I'll move.
Al moves,
Second?
Ernie seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried 4-0, so your request is approved. Appreciate the Homeowners Association for coming forward as well. How are we doing, Ed? You can still hear us? Good. Dave? All right. So, item number 3, Ridley site plan. This is carried over from the 5/9/2023 meeting. Public hearing is closed. Applicant is requesting approval to construct a single-family residence on Lot 6 of the O'Neill subdivision. And this is at County Route 41, 7896, County Route 41.
Good evening, Brian Ridley.
So, I think we last left with some questions regarding, I think it was grading, septic system location. Wes, help me out a little.
Yes, thanks, Joe.
Mhm.
So just to back up a little bit, Labella's June 6th, 2023 letter kind of closes the loop on the majority of our comments. And then we did have one new comment in that letter, and we were asking about the depth of the pipe and the distance to the leach field, and the applicant responded to that by providing a profile, and also kind of relocated the pipe that is between the septic tank and the leach field. that, so as to not require the depth of excavation that would have been, had it been more of a straight shot to the leach field. So there was a small revision to the plan in that sense.
So is that something they have to turn it like a manhole or a access point so that there's no, they can keep it cleaned out if
Well,
necessary?
The only thing that should be in the pipe that's between the septic tank and the leach field are liquids. There shouldn't be any solids. So there may not need to be a clean out, but if there does need to be one, we can ask them to put that on the plan. I will follow up with our engineer Jody Allen
Okay.
to see if she would require a clean out at that location.
I assume there's some sort of transfer box or drop box or whatever there at that point, or, I mean, the pipe doesn't just make an elbow, or does it?
Yeah, that's what I think it does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe there was a drop box added.
Is there a drop box?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, it's just good to control it from different directions if they had to access it in one direction or another to that box. I'm not requesting a special manhole or anything, but if it's required, I need to know that,
Yep.
that it's covered, so. And that's something we can do as a condition, I think.
Yeah, that's a technical item. I can double check with Jody, and if that needs to be required, we can have them put that on the drawing before the Mylar gets signed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Are we okay on the driveway slopes? I noticed that you said that was satisfied.
Yes, I think there was a miscalculation by one of us at Labella indicating that the driveway slope was greater than 10%. But
Okay.
looking at the plans again, we're okay with it.
Okay.
Those are the two conditions, or two elements, I think, that I was most concerned about, and I think the board expressed questions regarding as well. Anything else out west that you want to add?
Nope. that's it.
Okay. Al, any questions?
No, no questions.
Okay, Scott?
No, I would just say, kind of as I remarked last time, I think the plan is compliant with everything that we're looking for. I'm somewhat educated in that, you know, I see that you can put a septic system in the conservation easement, and evidently you can do grading in the conservation easement as well. That's unique to Victor because I know many towns that wouldn't allow that. So I'm educated more so in the town of Victor conservation easement.
Okay.
requirements.
There was a comment regarding use of natural markers for the conservation easement markers with an exception for the markers that the town has as a standard, which I think is like a 4x4 post with markers on it. So what were you proposing, and
We would like to use natural boundary markers if that's all possible, you know, whether it be a tree or a
tree or
boulder or
rocks
something
or
like, yeah,
something?
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, rather than a 4x4.
and I know
Just
we've
aesthetically, it looks more pleasing, you know, and
we have approved alternate markers in the past. Any questions or comments from the board on that item? You okay with it? Yeah, excuse me. All right, Wes is showing me the detail of the sewer line, going back to that at the elbow. There's a clean out provided there, so.
yes, yep.
That's good. All right, that helps. With regards to the natural markers, I don't know how many there are on this one.
I believe there's 9.
So 9 boulders or boulders and trees?
Boulders or trees, yeah.
Okay. I guess I don't have a problem leaving it at your discretion as long as and perhaps what you can do is note that on your final plan,
Okay.
that we approve, and Wes, if you can take a look and see that's called out at each of the turns of the conservation easement, that what your intent is, whether it's a tree or a boulder. I think
Now,
we're
that would
okay with
be,
that. Okay,
Is there some standard item that they're supposed to use? Or-
it's a,
4x4.
Post,
I think it's a 4x4 wood post,
yeah.
so,
and that would need to be at every one that's already marked out there currently, right? Okay.
so we do have an ongoing condition. If alternate natural conservation easement markers are to be used, said markers shall be submitted prior to building permit for approval. So what I just asked Wes is, that was prior to chairman's signature, so this would be an ongoing condition that we would want you don't have to do it before he signs it. In other words, we understand you're going to have natural conservation easement markers. We just need to have that on the record as what they are.
Okay,
So it would help if you put them on the plans.
I can definitely have it put right on the plan.
Okay,
Sure,
so,
not a problem at all.
anything else? Ernie, Scott?
Nope.
Al, you're all set, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, it sounds like you've been able to work through these and satisfy to the town's engineer and the board, so I think we'll move ahead with this resolution
Thank you.
for approval. So for the Ridley site plan, 7896 County Route 41, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, there are 12 of them. Whereas the planning board waives section 2793 of the town's design and construction standards so as to allow roof drainage to be discharged onto splash blocks and conveyed to drainage swales where abutting or downstream properties will not be adversely affected, and such disconnection would promote opportunity for roof drainage to be infiltrated into soils. And now therefore be it resolved that the application of Brian Ridley's site plan entitled Ridley Site Plan drawn by Green Land Surveying dated April 19th, 2022, received by the planning board April 20th, 2023, last revised May 1st, 2023, and I believe that's the current one. We have, Wes? Verify the date. Okay, May 1st, that's right.
No, I'm sorry.
Well, that's, you have April, but then. Okay, there's a June 7th date on here, Lisa. There's a series of dates that are. At the very bottom of that, yeah. It's like microscopic on your sheet. Okay, so it is June 7th, 2023. So we'll get that date on there. Planning board application 16 SP 2023 be approved with the following conditions. Conditions to be addressed prior to chairman's signature on the site plan. That no final signatures will be given on the plans until all legal and engineering fees have been paid per fee reimbursement. Local law adopted November 25th, 1996. Ongoing conditions, there are 5 of them. One is the standard. 2, should underground water conditions be encountered during construction, the developer is to address the encroachment and impact to the underground water conditions to the satisfaction of the town engineer. 3, the accessory structure may not be constructed prior to the start of construction of the primary building. 4, that a building permits be obtained prior to the start of construction of the house and the detached garage. Number 5, if alternate natural conservation easement markers are to be used, the said markers shall be submitted prior to building permit for approval. And be it further resolved that the planning board secretary distribute the planning board's approval letter. So, on that resolution, do I hear a motion for approval?
I move.
Ernie moves.
I'll second.
Scott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carried 4-0. So, that's that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Item number 4 is a public hearing. This is carried over from the April 25th, 2023 meeting, Davis Pole Barn, 1155 Hunter's Run. The owner is Donald Davis. Applicant is requesting approval to construct 1,496 square foot pole barn with a height of 17 feet.
Good evening, Don Davis.
So, name, address, all that, just for the record.
Sure, Don Davis, 1155 Hunter's Run.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Now, I think the comments that we had last time were that you were putting in a separate driveway for this pole barn, and there was concern, or at least a question as to why, thanks, Lisa, why an extra driveway was needed instead of using the existing driveway and, behind the house. But it sounds like there's not enough room there for the barn.
Correct.
Want to expand on that a little bit? That would be great.
Yeah, as we addressed last time, as you can see, there's an easement for the drainage off the back of the property. And although the easement is noted there, there's a fair amount more moisture than the easement shows. So again, we've allocated the space over on the left side of the property and then having a gravel drive to it.
Okay,
So then again, I've had the third survey done for you now. And,
because we needed to have you nail down the leach field and all of that, I believe. Go ahead, you finish that.
So as you can see, that was done per your recommendation through Passrow Associates. And then I've answered your questions.
Okay, Wes, any follow-up or comments?
Just for the record, Labella issued a June 2nd, 2023 letter indicating that the applicant has addressed our comments, so we're all set.
Okay, great. It's still an open public hearing, so I'll open it up to public if anyone has any other comments that they would wish to bring before the board or the applicant. Seeing or hearing none unless Susie has something. Nope, nothing online. So I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move.
Al moves, Ernie seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. Any questions from the board? Ernie, I'll start at your end of the table.
I think the survey does exactly what we wanted it to do. Presented us with the information
Okay.
in a way that we can understand it, so thank you.
Ernie, anything from you?
Nope,
Nope.
nothing.
Okay. Al?
Oh, I'm all set.
All right. Yeah, you've addressed my concerns as well, and clearly the town engineer is confident that this is a good solution, that what you've addressed. So with that, we have draft resolution for approval.
Did you close the public hearing?
Yeah, I
We did.
just did. So, if you guys are okay, I'll read the resolution for the Ridley site plan. Oops, sorry, Dave, wrong one. Good thing I read the first one. Davis Pole Barn, sorry, 155 Hunter's Run, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact. There are 8 of them, and Labella's letter of June 2nd is the latest one, correct? Yes. It's number 8. Now therefore be it resolved that the application Donald Davis, site plan entitled Davis Pole Barn, dated January 4th, 2023, received by the planning board April 3rd, 2023, last revised May 16th, 2023. Planning board application 12 SP 2023 be approved with the following conditions. Conditions to be addressed prior to the chairman's signature on the site plan. Item 1 is standard. Number 2, that any exterior lighting be compliant to code and approved by the code enforcement officer. So that would be 100% dark sky compliant and full cutoff downward looking lights. Ongoing conditions that the site plan comply with the Town of Victor design and construction standards for land development, including section 4. Number 2, the building permit be obtained for the pole barn prior to construction. And be it further resolved that the planning board secretary distribute the planning board's approval letter. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for approval of this resolution.
I'll move.
Ernie moves.
I'll second.
Got seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried 4-0. So it should be good to go.
Very good. I'd just like to make a note, I'm about a year into this. The second time around, I'm another $800, and I had them duplicate my survey, and it was off by 2 feet, which I supplied a copy to. So just wanted to make that note.
Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
it's probably a good thing that you did.
Thank you.
Thank you. Application number 5, Galea in-ground pool, 7877 Hidden Oaks, owner Christopher and Leslie Galea. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Applicant is requesting approval to install a 16 by 33 foot in-ground pool in a limited development district. Good evening.
Good evening. Leslie and Chris Gallia, 7877 Hidden Oaks.
Galea?
Gallia.
Yeah, see. Ask. Thank you. So tell us about your application.
So we're working with Northeastern Pool and Spa and Twin Oaks Landscaping. You should have received the final markups of our survey with the drainage that you guys requested, as well as pictures we had Myers Environmental come out and map out the leach field and the septic system in our front yard. And I did send Lisa those pictures as well. They were very difficult to see the little white flags, but everything is in our front yard, far removed from the proposed area of the pool.
We have pictures, yeah, good.
That fence that runs down the middle will be removed for the pool. Right now, that's just containing a dog run area. And the kids wanted to help out with marking out where the proposed boundary of the pool would be, so that's their little blue kiddie pool. That's what they're using currently.
So that
Do that.
blue pool that's in there, isn't it big enough?
That's not big enough, no, not for the 14-year-old.
Wouldn't be much water left if your 14-year-old dove into that thing. You said the fence on the right picture, that's like a shorter,
Yes, the
Fence.
unfinished, unpainted fence, that can be removed. It's not cemented into the ground.
okay. I do appreciate you getting us the photos because that helps a lot. So, any questions for the applicant? No?
I have none.
The septic system is in the front yard, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Mhm.
And I see that LaBella asked a question about swimming pool drainage. How do you propose to drain the swimming pool if you have to?
That's a great question, and that's something that I hope Northeastern is able to answer. Did they provide any of that when he brought the plan?
I don't think they provide that
Okay.
answer. They did provide this map from Northeastern.
The
I don't think so.
purpose of the question is just to make sure that the pool doesn't drain into the septic system because it can't handle that volume of water, so,
Or the neighbors?
or the neighbors,
Or the
so.
neighbors.
Or the
Yeah.
neighbors. So right now, what they're, could we go back to the picture that shows the backyard with the outline? So, yes, it's difficult to tell from this picture, but everything actually elevation-wise slopes towards the back corner of the darker brown fence.
There should be a laser pointer up there if you want to use it.
Oh, great. So right in this area here, the septic system, Chris, can you kind of indicate where our front yard is? The septic is, no, way over. Yeah, way over there. So everything would drain off into our front yard going towards the road, and then down into the sewer system.
And that white outline is the pool
That's the pool.
that you marked out with the kids. That helps, Scott?
I guess in most cases, you don't drain the entire pool, but I think it's a worthy question, especially when you're on a septic system. Perhaps some sort of information could be following this application in terms of a condition, so that we would know, where this is going to end up. There's some sort of plan for it anyway.
So I know there's a storm drain down, like, if you follow this directly to the road, there's a storm drain, and the septic, the cover to the septic is actually elevated on a hill. So the leach field's still kind of on a hill as well. So it all kind of funnels in to that storm drain.
Yeah, the contour map that you submitted shows that the grade falls off in that direction, so I think that's where it would end up. It's just a question of how it's distributed, I think.
Scott, are you talking about this contour map, the aerial?
Yeah, it seems to show that it heads towards, in the direction that they mentioned.
Yeah.
Um,
To the, I don't know if that's north, but northwest corner of the property at Hidden Oaks Drive. And the leach fields to the, directly north of the house.
Right, so if they discharge to the north, it would be desirable.
Yeah.
It looks like they have grade in that direction.
Yeah, it grades from where the pool is northwest.
Maybe we could put in some sort of a condition that should the pool need to be pumped out periodically or whatever, that the drainage route that the overflow should follow would be that direction.
I'm wondering how they drain it if the pool's deeper than the contour at the road. 'Cause
Gotta pump it.
Yeah, well, it's 10-foot drop between the side of the house and the front yard. because it goes from 600 to 590-ish. Depends on what contour you're touching. Sorry, we're having a little, looking at your exhibits.
Probably the most important condition we can put on the resolution is that it's not to be drained into the wastewater system.
Okay.
Going?
Yeah.
And you're just doing pavers and that sort of thing? You're not doing any decks or structures around the pool?
Correct, just pavers.
You probably wouldn't. I do. All right, we're working on notes. Okay, good. Okay, this still is a public hearing, so anyone in the audience interested in speaking to the board or the applicant, neighbors or otherwise, regarding their application? Okay, seeing or hearing none? Assume Susie, nothing online? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move.
Ernie moves.
Second.
Scott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Closed. Public hearing is closed. Any other questions from the board?
Nope.
Al?
Nope.
And Wes is hurrying along, putting his notes together on that item.
Okay.
All right. I'll let
You can read that, Jim.
you get to read it. Okay, I will read the resolution. If you're all on board with that, it sounds like you are. So the resolution is for the Gallia in-ground pool, 7877 Hidden Oaks, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact. There are 7 of them, including Labella's letter June 2nd, 2023, and provided comments. Now therefore be it resolved that the application of Leslie Gallia site plan entitled Gallia in-ground pool located in the limited development district received by the planning board April 28th, 2023, last revised June 12th, 2023, planning board application number 21 SP 2023 be approved with the following conditions. Condition number 1 is standard. Condition number 2, that comments from Labella Associates dated June 2nd, 2023 be addressed. Ongoing conditions. Conditions 1 and 2 are both standard. Condition 3 is going to be recited by Wes.
Should there be a need to partially or fully drain the pool, drainage shall not be directed over the septic system nor affect adjoining properties.
Okay. And that direction should also be given to your pool builder wherever they decide to locate the drain.
Okay.
And to make sure that it's handled appropriately. So
We can do that.
further resolved that the planning board secretary distribute the planning board's approval letter. So with that amended resolution draft, do I hear a motion?
I'll move it.
Scott moves.
Second.
Ernie seconds. On favor?
All right.
Opposed? Carried 4-0. Be all set.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
So our next application is the final subdivision for 1086 Strong Road subdivision. The owner's A6 Property Holdings. Applicant is requesting final approval to subdivide 34.42 acre parcel into 11 single-family lots, including an existing house and garage. This will be the third step in a 3-step process for a major subdivision. The preliminary plan was approved on March 28th, 2023. Evening, Doug.
Good evening. Doug Elder from Douglas Eldred Site Engineering. Not sure how much detail you want to go into things. The one item, I believe, I addressed the comments that I had that were outstanding in a letter on Sunday night. I got the comments on Friday. The one item appears that would require some response other than technical comments would be the open space question brought up by Labella. So maybe I'll just let Wes go over that. I'm not sure I understand completely everything he's saying, so I think that would be more appropriate.
Wes is in top form tonight.
Okay. Get my bearings here. All right, so we're looking at, what do we got? We got Strong Road here, right?
Taylor.
Or, I'm
Taylor.
sorry, Taylor Road. Yep, Taylor Road.
Wes, do you want a different map? There's a one that has overall,
Yeah, maybe the overall one would be helpful
first one,
if we have that.
that one.
Yeah, that's going to be helpful, right. All right, so one of the comments in our letter, we wanted to offer for planning board consideration, an idea just to talk about here first, right? So right now, we've got two different types of easements. We've got this more restrictive kind of conservation easement that's shown in the darker gray, right?
That's a most restrictive zone, right? There's 3 zones, or 3 types of easements.
I think he's got 2. You have 2?
No, but there's 3 total in the
Oh, right,
code,
for
so
the
this would be
town.
the highest, most restrictive.
Yep, I think so.
Okay, thanks.
The other type of easement that Doug has showing here goes along the frontage of Taylor Road and along the frontage of Strong Road, as well as this area in here, right? And I think the surrounding area of Lot 8, right? This is different. This is a drainage easement. That's not a conservation easement. Okay, so the easement that's shown along the frontage of Taylor Road and Strong Road is coterminous with what the setback is, right? It's coterminous with the setback line. So that in itself is kind of prohibiting any accessory structures or things that could be built in that location. So I'm wondering, does it make sense to actually establish an open space easement here versus, having this second type of easement still back in this area and maybe still around this house, but maybe along the frontage of the roadway, have that shaded in a different manner where, and have a note be affixed to the subdivision plat indicating that this area, this frontage or the setback area is contributing towards the 50% open space, but not actually formalizing it as an easement. We've done something a little bit similar to this in, I think it was Southgate Hills Phase 3 along the rear property line, where there wasn't where they had a proposed conservation easement that was coterminous with the rear lot line setback, but it wasn't, it didn't connect to anything else. So its usability or its function as an easement really negligible, I think. And so I just wanted to offer that for the planning board's consideration. Do you have questions on my thought here? Does that make any?
So don't have a question on the thought, but
Yeah.
I thought part of the purpose of having that easement along the frontage was to preserve trees that are existing and/or to be planted to help with the screening of the development.
That's right, and that's different from a setback, because a setback's just addressing buildings.
Structures, right?
And Wes is right, they're redundant, they're on top of one another. And it's, I guess it's one way of satisfying the open space requirement, and, but it is a little different. It's not unlike the way I was looking at the conservation easement on the last application that came through the Ridley site plan. I mean, sometimes these easements make sense to me when there's natural features like we see here with that tributary running through there. Other times like this, I think you're kind of grasping at straws, trying to find something to satisfy the regulation. And I guess this does that, and it does offer an additional form of protection, as you say, for landscaping that wouldn't be covered by a setback.
I just might add, I did meet with the Conservation Board. I don't know if they provided a report to you or not. They did? So we did, we spent a lot of time kind of discussing the nature of the easements. Like Scott said, that one of the purposes of the frontage easements is to protect the trees we put in there for screening, and also the berm, so they wouldn't grade the berm away or cut down trees willy-nilly, and they have to replace them, things like that. The one thing we wanted to be able to do with the backyard areas was to be able to do gardening. That only applies to these areas. And then this area, the reason this is surrounds the house is, I know Babette was very concerned about maintaining the environmental setting of that historic house, not listed, but certainly an important house in the community. So I'm not sure where the Conservation Board came out on things with regard to that. We talked about, having the easement and not specifically starting and stopping the easement for driveways, just do that in a verbal sense within the document. And we talked about just having it like 10 foot either side of the pavement. The easement would start and stop, and we still have plenty of space for the open space requirement. So those are the things I talked about with the Conservation Board. Of course, I'd like to make it as simple as possible, but I think probably the Conservation Boards should weigh in on those as well.
Do we have a comment from them on this issue? What did they say? Yeah, I got it in my packet, I just can't find it.
I never got a copy of those, so
They have a paragraph at the end
I think at the end.
of this
Okay.
statement. It says, "The back part of the property should be a type A easement, open space," which is the dark areas shown on the plan, which would allow for gardening and exclude hardscape. It doesn't make sense.
Exclude hardscape.
Yeah, what's mentioned here, although I think the reference for the backyard would be for the type B.
Yeah, but it says the front line around the road
Yeah.
would be type B, site-specific, and would allow for access driveway plus 10 on each side.
Right,
Allow mowing, no hardscape, no construction, etc.
right.
Markers should be placed per code along the driveway plus 10 feet. Board stated that all language should be thoroughly read through for clarity before filing. Silt fence and limited amount of land that is disturbed. No further comments. I don't understand the first part of that.
Yeah, so the idea here was, keep the easement continuous, but have verbiage within the easement that just says it excludes the area of the pavement for the driveway plus 10 feet either side. And then if,
All right, I gotta say something. We'll write the language, what he's talking about, the language will be written into that easement for the frontage along Taylor and Strong to allow the driveway, similar to the easement that you were talking about where we wrote into the easement, septic systems would be allowed in that conservation easement. Okay, so it'll be drafted that way.
Right, so it's a continuous figure, so to speak, with the provision in the text, so you don't have to do a meets and bounds for every
Correct.
single driveway.
Correct.
right.
It'll just be written into the language,
Right,
okay?
that makes sense.
I don't understand the back part
Cam's
of the
been taking care
property.
of me for 35 years, so I will let her continue. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So
Yeah, that's not right.
conservation easement, type A easement, which is type A? Is it the
The
dark one?
dark one. So
That
what they
shouldn't
meant to
have
say
any-
was, what they meant to say was this area, the type B, that's in the
Okay.
backyard. We wanted to allow gardening in there.
And that'll be specific, we'll write it for those specific lots that it encompasses,
Okay,
okay?
makes
So
sense.
it'll call out those specific lots in the language of the easement.
Mm-hmm.
The dark gray will be most restrictive, and that's
Yep.
the way it'll be written.
okay. That's my understanding, looking at that map.
Yes.
Not,
Yeah, I think they
not
just
what I'm
made a
seeing.
mistake when they said the gardening thing for type A.
Okay.
I can go through any other comments, but Pete says he wants to watch the hockey game, so. No, I'll be glad to go through any other ones that you want to go over, or, most of this stuff, unfortunately, is my fault. When I changed the plans from preliminary to final, I didn't correct all the referencing notes. And then there's some stuff with regard to drainage that I think Wes and I can work out, unless you have any other thoughts, Wes, on those.
I don't think so. Just a bunch of technical comments and just drafting corrections on the plans.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty satisfied.
Yeah, I apologize for that. When I made the B set, I forgot to change the notes, so.
And there'll be some things that Mary would follow up on in terms of stormwater, to be sure that she's satisfied as well. But I think in large part, be happy with where things are today.
Yeah,
It
we'll do
looks like
whatever
we've
Lobella wants to.
minimized the number of turns and markers and things like that by lining them up.
Yeah, I guess, so we cleaned all that up, taken out of those jogs. We had, before I was sort of providing conservation easement over the back end of the berms, so to speak, and that's kind of silly, So we straightened that out, we'll put markers in. I told the Conservation Board if you want to put markers in for the driveways, they're not shown in here, we could still do that. You could just go 10 feet over from the outside edge of the pavements and put markers in, but that's up to you folks, if you want those markers in. And they were saying they just as soon have the 4x4 posts. I was suggesting maybe pine trees, at least for the back areas, but
I
whatever.
was thinking rocks.
What's that?
I was thinking rocks.
A
big
pile of
boulder
rocks.
At each one, at each lot line close to the road, you could put just some stones along there or some small plantings, but
Yeah,
not more natural. I mean, those
Yeah,
the square, these little treated timbers, I don't know how long they last.
yeah, I mean, we'll obviously do whatever the board thinks is most appropriate. I thought most of it's deciduous trees, so if you use pine trees, they would
Yeah.
stand out. In fact, they're all deciduous trees for the plantings.
Any comments from the board outstanding, Al?
No, other than my preference would be natural markers as well.
Yeah, okay. Scott?
Nope.
Ernie?
No, Keith, you all set with your end of it? Okay, then I have nothing.
Wes, we covered for your comments and things, that sounds like?
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Yeah, we went through a lot with preliminary, so.
yeah. Yeah, we haven't seen this a number of times and really been
Yeah, I'm
pretty
sure you're
thorough
sick of me.
looking at- You can come back again if you want, but I don't think you need to. You can come back again if you want, but I don't
I'll
think
come
you
back
want-
to say hi.
Okay. Thanks, Doug. All right, so I have a draft resolution here. Any changes, Wes, or you're all set?
Not yet, no.
Okay, we'll find out in a minute. All right, it's 3 pages. Try to get through it quickly here. So, resolution, application 02FS 2023, 1086 Strong Road, final subdivision, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, and there are 13 of them. Whereas that the planning board hereby waives Chapter 55, Section 55-6, Paragraph D of the Victor Town Code that would require 440 feet separation between driveways as part of access spacing requirements, as the proposed land use does not generate a significant amount of traffic, nor do Taylor Road or Strong Road have the volume of traffic that warrant adherence to access spacing, and whereas the planning board hereby waives section 2793 of the town's design and construction standards for lots 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, so as to allow roof drainage to discharge onto splash blocks and convey drainage to drainage swales where abutting or downstream properties will not be adversely affected, and such disconnection would promote opportunity for roof drainage to be infiltrated into soils. And whereas the planning board classified the project as a type 1 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, and initiated the lead agency coordination process by transmitting Part 1 of the SECRA Environmental Assessment Form and project information to involved and interested agencies, and the planning board carefully reviewed the long environmental assessment form and did not identify the potential for at least one significant adverse environmental impact associated with the proposed action using the criteria for determining significance identified in 6 NYCRR Section 617-7C1 and in accordance with 6 NYCRR Section 617C2 and 3, and issued a negative declaration that is more fully articulated in the Planning Board's negative declaration resolution passed on March 14th, 2023. Now therefore be it resolved that the final subdivision application of Chris Iverson of Iverson Construction, major subdivision, entitled 1086 Strong Road, final subdivision, drawn by Douglas Eldred Site Engineering, dated May 2023, received by the Planning Board May 8th, 2023, Planning Board application 2FS 2023, be approved with the following conditions. Conditions to be addressed prior to the chairman's signature on the site plan. Number 1 is standard. Number 2, before the Planning Board chairman signs the approval film originals, the developer must submit electronic subdivision map files to the town pursuant to Section 133 of the Town Victor Design and Construction Standards. Copies of electronic files shall be forwarded to the town engineer to confirm that the data on the electronic files is the same as the approved subdivision plans. Number 3, that Section 4, standard approval conditions for all subdivisions, major and minor, of design and constructions be met. Number 5, that with comments in a letter dated
Missed a
June
number
9th.
there.
I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, this is number 4, not number 5. Thank you, Ernie. And then 4, 5, and 6. So number 4, the comments in a letter dated June 9th, 2023 from Labella Associates be addressed. Number 5, that the comments in a letter dated May 25th, 2023 and June 9th, 2023 from the stormwater manager be addressed. Number 6, that all conservation easement markers be shown on the final subdivision plans. Ongoing conditions, items 1 and 2 and 3 are standard. Number 4, the town highway, Victor Highway work permit be obtained prior to construction of curb cuts on Taylor Road and Strong Road. Number 5, applicant shall be aware that yard trees are required per section 184-16C7 of the Victor Town Code. Number 6, if the applicant would like the town of Victor to be responsible for the long-term maintenance of the stormwater facility, the applicant shall apply to have the property become part of the town of Victor drainage improvement area. This application process involves submitting a map plan and report to that the town engineer will review, and then the town board would have to approve adding the property to the town of Victor DIA. Number 7, that the request of the Planning and Building Department, a pre-construction meeting shall be held prior to the start of construction. And be it further resolved that the Planning Board Secretary distribute the Planning Board's approval letter. Wes, any comments or need changes? No. Okay. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for approval of that subdivision resolution.
I'll move.
Second.
Ernie moves, Scott seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried 4-0.
Thanks.
Recommendation from the town board on Plan Development District, 7200 Rawson Road, PDD. Applicant is requesting to rezone property at 7200 Rawson Road, totaling 22.5 acres, from light industrial to a new planned development district. And we saw this last meeting, I think. And also, that's where we approved some soil piles from another part of town. So, any questions or comments from the board on this one? Ernie?
No, I'm just looking, I got something here, Woodstone Custom Homes, that's not on, is it?
No. Oh, yes. Take it away. Wes has got the 11 criteria for,
Yeah, so
I-
the applicant gave a presentation at the last planning board meeting. And Peter, I wanted to offer you a copy of the draft 11 criteria that we put together here, just so you can follow along.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4. If you could take one, pass it down. Right. Yep. So, as you know, regarding the PDD process, we've got to make findings on the 11 criteria found in section 21127 something of the town code. So, what I've done here is I've drafted put together a resolutions in very draft format. This is an opportunity for discussion and feedback. For me, I don't have the expectation that you act on this resolution tonight. I think if you feel that there are things that some questions that you want to have the applicant answer, or if you're looking for more information, this is the opportunity maybe to help us identify what else might be needed to make this recommendation back to the town board on the rezoning. So why don't we skip towards the bottom of page 1, right? We don't need to go through the whereas information. But one of the criteria is the need for the proposed development, right? And just to follow along here, I've indicated the town's 2015 comp plan found that despite Victor's history of single-family residences and subdivisions, market dynamics within Victor have recently shifted to favor more dense residential forms such as apartments, townhouses, and patio homes. Despite this change, there is no evidence suggesting a long-term decrease in the demand for residential development within Victor. And that's on page 4.6, existing conditions of the comp plan. Chapter 4 of the town's 2015 comprehensive plan also discusses the anticipated build-out that has become regarded as an important benchmark. And in addition, goal E on page 5.28, the town's comp plan reads, provide housing for residents of various socioeconomic backgrounds. So a build-out study was completed for the town in 2005 by Ontario County that forecast a maximum density residential build-out of approximately 8,242 units outside the village of Victor. And the 2020 U.S. Census indicates the town contains 6,869 housing units, leaving 1,373 units to be built to reach the maximum build-out from 2005. The proposed housing units of the current proposal would not have been included in the 2005 build-out figure as the land is zoned light industrial. While the proposal includes a mix of residential uses to serve a variety of demographics, including economic and household sizes, the multifamily units are sized based on the builder's experience of the types of units being proposed. The applicant contends the project would serve the need of several demographics, including empty nester, single-parent households, young families, and single-person households. The applicant also contends these are in-demand markets for 2023. The project would allow for development of greater density and diversity of housing in close proximity to the village. The applicant contends that the rezoning will provide for a residential community to be developed that would be marketed towards multiple demographics, including empty nester, single-parent households, young families, and single-person households. Specifically, the proposed development would support the following residential goals identified in the Town of Victor Comp Plan. Encourage the provision of a diversity of housing types for a variety of age groups, family sizes, and income levels. Encourage development in a manner to efficiently utilize land, transportation, utility system, and other support services. Furthermore, the proposed development would also support the following housing and neighborhood development goals and strategies described in, I don't know why that says draft comp plan, that should be just comprehensive plan. Goal M, promote walkability and non-automotive transportation within neighborhoods. Strategy 25, require sidewalks in non-rural neighborhoods. Strategy 26, create a pedestrian and bike path for the town and village to link subdivisions, particularly cul-de-sacs, as well as connect people and to activity centers and recreational ways. And goal Q, provide housing for residents for various socioeconomic backgrounds and life stages. So maybe before we go on to the next bullet point, are there any immediate comments or questions from the planning board regarding the need for the proposed development? You feel that the applicant has given you sufficient information to document the need for the development?
I had one question. Top paragraph of that second page, the build-out study reference, says the town, in the 2020 census, the town contained 6,869 housing units, leaving 1,373 units to be built, reach the maximum build-out from 2005. This one is not included in that because it was light industrial. So you're saying that now, instead of 1,373, there's 60 some odd more units that will be added to that number?
I guess what I'm saying is that the 8,242 doesn't include the 63 units that are being proposed today as part of this project, right? Because what that 2005 study did, it identified the build-out given the regulations that were in place at that time and the district boundaries that were in place at that time. So because this is not or hadn't been a residentially zoned property, that particular parcel, this parcel didn't contribute any of the residential units to the
Right.
overall build-out.
If you took out every scrap of property in town that's zoned residential, built it out based on the density, that's that number, 8,242 units.
That's correct.
Outside the village.
That's correct.
So now, since this is outside the village of Victor and it wasn't included in that number, anytime we do this with a planned development district, you're going to increase that 8,242 unit number.
That's right.
And so you're increasing the number of residential units that are,
Unless there's an offsetting reduction of residential somewhere else in
Right.
the town.
I'm thinking purely additive.
Yeah,
on
right now, this proposal
example.
is additive, for
Right.
sure, yeah.
That's right.
And I guess how does that fit the comprehensive plan, that it adds more units? Is that a good thing based on the comprehensive plan?
I'm not sure I'm
Sorry.
prepared to answer that
I
question.
didn't think you would be, but I'm throwing it out there as a consideration, not that it's bad, we're adding more opportunity for people to live in Victor.
But something, again, the town board should contemplate as part of the
Is there a
rezone.
Is there a desire from the town board, I'll sort of glance in Ed's direction, but that if we're limited by the comprehensive plan now in terms of number of units and density and all that, is it okay to increase that number? The interest. Okay. And the next question was, we referenced the comprehensive plan, which is now old, almost 8 years old now, 2015, right?
So, yeah, the initial adoption was 2015. There have been several amendments in recent years. So I wouldn't say that the document is stale by any means, right? Because
Right.
the town is continually,
Yeah.
making changes to it as time goes
Well, just
by.
so we're clear, the comprehensive plan is not statute. Am I
That's
correct?
correct.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah, and that's how we use it. We use it as a guide.
Right.
It's not all, end-all be-all kind of thing, but it sort of helps us as we go through
Sure.
different questions that come up similar to this.
Okay. I kind of wanted to clarify in my mind where the density looks, how the density looks in the town going forward. And it'd be interesting to hear the town board's perspective is what would be an ideal or a good size for the town to be residentially?
Or are you really asking, what's the max?
Well, is it okay to continue to increase that number, or is it a goal to increase that number because we're limited by that 8,242 units?
Okay,
Maybe
I will get back to you with an answer.
That's fine.
Are we limited?
Huh?
Are we limited by that number?
Well,
No.
if
No, I don't think we're limited.
No,
at all.
there's-
we can change the zoning to add more units, correct?
It wasn't a threshold in terms of the town will not exceed 8,242
Right.
units. It was a number that identified, right, what the build-out would be, given the density requirements that were in place at the time. Here's what your total households would
Yeah.
look like, yeah. But it in no means was intended to be a limit or
And
threshold.
maybe I misstated that in terms of what I was trying to say, because this is the vision right now, the way it's zoned, is 8,242 units. Okay, is that good? Is that bad? Would
Yeah.
they like to have more?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot that comes into play too, with utilities, infrastructure, what can the town's infrastructure accommodate?
Yeah, I mean, there have been discussions about swapping development rights, I guess, right? Make them more
Transfer
dense,
development rights.
Transfer development rights and all that, so.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When you do that, do you increase the number of units, or you just keeping the same number, that's kind of well beyond this document at the moment, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to understand where the town stood on, do we want to encourage more building and development, or housing construction or capacity down the road? And it's kind of the purview of this board as well, so.
Mhm. So with regard to need for the development, we've heard that the applicant contends that, there is a market for this type of thing, right, that he's proposing. Is there anything else that you would maybe want to ask from the applicant to establish the need for this particular type of housing style? Are you satisfied with what we have?
I'd like to know what the market research showed.
Market research?
Yep.
And my other comment was, again, around the various socio-economic backgrounds. So the description earlier was it's geared more towards middle and high income versus low. And that may be fine, right? But if the spirit of this language was to get true diversity in housing for the town, I don't think this necessarily checks that box.
I know that price was discussed at one of the earlier meetings. I don't know whether it was Peter or Scott that talked about it. You want to enlighten us, Scott, at all? On market? If you can restate the market. Yeah, we got to make you stand up at least
You
one
might be able
time.
to take a handheld microphone in
Yeah.
your seat.
Peter Vars from BME Associates. I think what our goal is this evening is we'll just listen, take our notes,
Okay,
and then we'll probably provide a written response. I think
All
that
right.
might be best.
that would be fine.
For
That will
everybody.
certainly speed up my conversations.
Yes.
So, thank you, Peter. All right, well,
Okay.
duly noted, I guess, and we can move ahead.
I would just add, relative to the housing style and everything that, I see in the market, this is a different market than we've seen in the past. Much more condensed housing seems to be the norm. The traditional single family is not really as popular, anywhere near as popular as it used to be. So I think we have to bend a little bit with the whims of the market. If we were to try to adhere to some strict form of single-family residential housing, I don't think it would be beneficial to the builder, the developer, or the community necessarily. It's also close to the village where we have a higher density anyway, just naturally there, regardless of whether there's a municipal boundary. The people there are not going to pay attention to a municipal boundary. They're going to walk across the street over to the post office or wherever. So I think in many ways the need is there. The need is almost a national need, I think, at this point. I think we hear about it everywhere we go.
Sure.
So in my mind, the need is there. And maybe as we go through the process, we can better define the housing style, type, and that sort of thing. But in my mind, whether the need is there, this was approved as a PDD before, and I see your names on the meeting minutes from the previous application. So I think then, as now, the need is there. That's what I think.
Any other comments? Move on to the next one,
Thank you.
number 2.
Number 2, in what respects the plan is or is not consistent with the stated purpose of the planned development district? Section 21127A of the Victor Code concerning general plan development district requirements indicates that the purpose of the district is to provide a means of developing those land areas within the community considered appropriate for new residential, recreational, commercial or industrial use or a satisfactory combination of these uses in an economic and compatible manner while encouraging the utilization of innovative planning and design concepts in the areas without departing from the spirit and interest of these zoning regulations. The preliminary development plan has been prepared to allow for the development of an industrial viable property while protecting and preserving the neighboring residential and environmental elements offered on or near the site. Direct implementation of the parcel's current light industrial zoning classification is not conducive to meeting planned development district objectives. If there's no comments, we can move to number 3, but feel free to chime in. Even if I go beyond number 2 or 3, feel free to chime in when you're ready.
Yeah, you're okay, I think.
The extent to which the plan departs from the zoning regulations formerly applicable to the property in question, including bulk density and permitted uses. The proposed development would result in a less intensive land use and smaller building sizes, houses and townhomes, than what is currently allowed or is currently present. The property is currently zoned light industrial. And then we've got the list of current allowable uses here. I won't read through them, but you've got a list of the permitted uses. Regarding dimensional criteria, the area, setback, and building size restrictions would be altered to better accommodate the residential use within the project. The project would therefore be well-suited as a neighborhood transition to the existing community character to the south and west.
I would say this applies to the housing, not necessarily the light industrial building on the same land development district.
Okay.
Observation.
Number 4, the existing character of the neighborhood and the relationship beneficial or adverse.
Yeah, just a question back to 3. So just as the planning board and town board contemplate a, potential rezoning to PDD, would we want to consider any of these, like bakeries, like daycares, right, to have a true mixed use that, right, there's almost like on-site services for the community as part of the design of this? So just something to think about, I guess, versus purely residential.
A mixed use? Is that?
That's, yeah, and that's really what this particular planned development district is headed towards, unless there's a different use for the light industrial building. And then perhaps you could use that portion of the property to provide that sort of service. I think that's where you're going with this
Right.
now?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right. Something to think about, Peter? Okay, Wes, thanks.
Okay. Writing some notes.
That's good.
The existing character of the neighborhood and the relationship, beneficial or adverse, of the proposed development to this neighborhood. The Drumlins residential neighborhood on the opposite side of Rawson Road has a density of 2.8 units per acre, while the proposed residential area within the PDD offers approximately 3.7 units per acre. The predominant land uses within the vicinity of the project are vacant, industrial, residential, and open space. The project proposes 69 residential units. Hold on a minute. It's 61. No. It is 69, isn't it? Total. 61 yeah.
Single-family homes,
Got it.
yeah.
All right. Adjacent to the existing industrial building, the project is intended to be a transition area between the village and the nearby residential land uses within the town. Buffering concerns from the 2014 proposal were such that the planning board suggested there be a 100-foot landscape buffer between the existing industrial building and the closest residential building. The development proposal attempts to blend with the existing environmental features by keeping development out of an open space area that contains the New York State DEC delineated wetland, a stream, and associated buffers.
So is that 100-foot landscape buffer being reestablished in this application, or is it less?
Based on the graphic, I don't know that I observed a 100-foot landscape buffer between the existing building and the adjoining residential homes. I wasn't able to locate in my file readily today the proposal from 2014.
Right. Good for comparison in the future. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay. Number 5, the location of principal and accessory buildings on the site in relation to one another and to other structures and uses in the vicinity, including bulk and height. As an existing industrial building occupies the eastern portion of the site, the primary residential buildings would be separated by a minimum of 100 feet from the existing industrial building. I should maybe say could be. The industrial use is the portion of the PDD that is closest to the village, and the proposed residential offers a transitional area adjacent to the Drumlins townhomes and other residential properties to the west. The portion of the site that proposes 37, this is left over from the previous recommendation. We need to cross that out. So the last paragraph for number 5, the Drumlins residential neighborhood has a density of 2.8 units per acre, while the proposed residential area within the PDD offers approximately 3.7 units per acre. The proposed landscaping, sidewalks, and architectural details of the homes would be consistent with the village character in the nearby Drumlins townhomes. Number 6, provision for pedestrian circulation and open space in the planned development. An internal network of sidewalks and a crosswalk would serve both residential areas of the PDD and allow for pedestrian connectivity to the Auburn Trail to the north. New sidewalks would connect to the existing sidewalks on the south side of Rawson Road, affording pedestrian access to the village. This aspect of the PDD is consistent with the goals and objectives in the town's comprehensive plan. An area located near the northwest corner contains a DEC wetland and associated 100-foot buffer area around the delineated wetland, as well as the stream and an associated buffer. As the project is in close proximity to the village and Rawson Road is not a rural road, the planning board recommends that sidewalks be installed on the north side of Rawson Road to connect the proposed single-family homes with the intersection of the Auburn Trail and Rawson Road. This approach would be consistent with the Institute for Transportation Engineers' design guidelines for having crosswalks on both sides of a non-rural street where residential density is between 1 and 4 units per acre, which is noted on page 5.220 of the comprehensive plan.
It's sidewalks on both sides, right, not crosswalks.
Let me bring up, it might be helpful, let's bring up the Google Earth image here. Could you switch me? So while I don't have the graphic from the applicant, this is the parcel that's being considered as part of the PDD. They have shown a connection to the Auburn Trail, and they're showing an internal sidewalk network for the buildings in this area. And then they also show, I think it's a crosswalk somewhere in here, so that this proposed development would have the pedestrian connectivity to the sidewalks on the south side of Rawson Road. What the draft recommendation says here, the last paragraph of number 7, would be that the applicant install sidewalks on the north side of Rawson Road to connect the single-family homes that are located in this corner, front all the way on Rawson Road, and construct those sidewalks to this point here at the intersection of the Auburn Trail and Rawson Road. So, food for thought maybe for the planning board. So that might offer an additional level of connectivity to the village, right? That's off to the screen to the right, and may avoid, street, I guess someone, if they were crossing the street here or here to get back into this development, just another opportunity for connection.
I believe their contention last meeting or previous meeting was that the connection to the village was through the Auburn Trail on the backside of the lot. However,
correct.
you make a good point about the houses that are off on their own, that they don't have any kind of connection to the village or the sidewalk system. So.
Now, there may be some engineering challenges with what we've suggested in this draft recommendation with putting a sidewalk on the north side, right? I'm not sure exactly what those engineering challenges might be. You might have to look on how to look.
Well, there is a
Resolve
sidewalk on the
those.
south side of Rawson, right? We just saw
That
that.
is correct.
There's a sidewalk up
there
to
is.
Burlington, that's it, right?
Yes.
We'd have to at least get down to Burlington and cross. It would be great if they could go internally or just past those houses on the, I'll call it the east end of those homes, to the Auburn Trail. So I guess I would ask the applicant to consider connectivity options to the Auburn Trail and to the village from those 3, 6, 8 homes. And then I would also suggest a crosswalk at entry A, I'll call it, or Road A, opposite Chapel Hill. Yeah, it's shown there, so you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's nothing from the private road C to either Auburn Trail or the village on the sidewalk system. So, you may be right about the engineering challenges, but I think we ought to be able to work through that.
Okay.
So,
We move on to number 7?
sure.
Okay, the traffic circulation features within the site, including the amount of, location of, and access to automobile parking and terminal loading areas. This is a critical issue to base approval of the proposed site. Development of the site includes roads that are identified as being private. However, the developer will be required to design and build the private roads to town standards. The project includes visitor parking spaces alongside the internal road network where the townhouses are located. Lastly, the single-family homes will access Rawson Road via a private road, resulting in 2 curb cuts on Rawson Road rather than 8 curb cuts, 1 for each single-family residence. Traffic, parking, and loading areas for the industrial portion of the site are not changing from the current conditions. Number 8, the amount of traffic generated at peak hours and the provision for adequately handling such volumes with particular reference to points of ingress and egress, potential hazards such as inadequate sight distances and intersection design, and the nature and suitability of the connecting street or highway system to absorb the anticipated changes. Although a level of service analysis has not been provided to date, it is noted that traffic is anticipated to be less under the proposed PDD concept versus a build-out under a light industrial use. Number 9, the provision for storm, sanitary, and solid waste disposal and other utilities on the property adjacent to the site as well as the site itself. Sanitary sewer infrastructure runs along Rawson Road, which would convey flows from the proposed project to the village's wastewater treatment plant. Given the town of Victor's experience with having dozens of sanitary sewer pump stations, the planning board recognizes the town board may not be in favor of accepting dedication of a new sewer pump station. However, the property does appear to be within the town's consolidated sewer district. The planning board suggests that the applicant coordinate and cooperate with the village of Victor regarding their concerns over the condition and conveyance system and treatment plant. I should say plant, not plan. During the 2014 PDD proposal, it was noted that the trunk sewer at School Street needed frequent flushing and is usually surcharged. The site is within the town's water benefited area, and stormwater runoff will need to be analyzed as part of the comprehensive stormwater management plan that is developed per the town's design and construction standards. Electric, gas, and communication services are all currently located adjacent to the site. The planning board suggests that the town board work with the applicant to verify that utility service demands will be well within the limits of what the existing infrastructure can accommodate.
I wonder if the statement about the 2014 PDD proposal, the trunk sewer, if that's even applicable now with the improvements that have been done for the sewer trunk line? Because they went and installed a whole new sewer line along the Auburn Trail, right?
They did.
I don't know if this,
I can double check. So I don't believe that the 2018 capital project would have had any impact on the school street sewer.
okay, I'd be interested to know that, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can verify that, and I can, I can provide a map to kind of show the improvements and how the flows go.
Is that in the village sewer district?
Yes.
I mean, it's in the village for sure, so.
Yep.
Okay. All right,
Okay. Number 10, the proposed landscaping and signage. The PDD will incorporate tree plantings for a 30-foot buffer on the northwest corner of the site and includes graphic representation of possible future plantings that will need further refinement in the design and review stage. The planning board recommends that the applicant develop a landscaping plan that takes into account the town's native plant manual and coordinate the details of the landscaping plan with the town's landscaping consultant. A substantial landscape buffer must be provided between the existing industrial building and the proposed townhouses. Additionally, the planning board suggests that adequate landscaping be provided along the proposed access between the residential neighborhood to the Auburn Trail. All existing trees that are to remain will be protected during construction and utilized in the design of the proposed landscaping where practical.
so there's no real buffer between the houses along driveway A and the light industrial building. It's a 30-foot setback to the property line proposed, and then it's only a 15 or 20-foot setback to the backs of the, yeah, it's the old, here's the new plan. The old plan has, and I have both of these on my computer here, the old plan has a large stormwater management area to make a large buffer area, and we don't get that buffering from the new townhomes. So that's, to me, that's a big difference in how you're separating the light industrial portion of this PDD from the residential. And it was one advantage to the way they laid it out previously, to provide that buffer. It was a convenient place to put a stormwater management area. So I would suggest they look at that as well.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. And number 11, the manner in which the physical design makes adequate provision for service demands, water, sewer, fire, etc., adequate traffic control, and the amenities of light, air, and visual enjoyment. The proposed layout has been prepared with emphases on providing a residential density that would be expected within or adjacent to a village atmosphere, as well as emphasis on pedestrian circulation and connectivity to the village.
I agree with the statement, and I'll make sure that they satisfy all of those goals with the whole site.
That's all I've got.
Any comments? Scott?
It looks rather similar to what you folks evaluated in 15. Many of the same replies are contained in that, I guess, resolution that I have a copy of. But that was based on a different layout too, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is the previous layout, and I can't see it very well, Scott, but it's got a, here's the light industrial, here's the
Right.
stormwater, then they have a looping
But
road without the hammerhead on the one extension,
in
and then a small cul-de-sac for these other little houses up there.
in rendering a determination on the PDD, are we locking into a design necessarily, or are we just saying that this property makes sense to be developed this way with the reservation on how the exact layout will turn out?
I don't think you're locked into a specific, I think you've got the preliminary, with this recommendation, right? You're making a recommendation on this preliminary development plan. I would suspect it gives you some flexibility, right? I don't think you're necessarily locked into exactly what you have here in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way I understand it as well. I think conceptually, a PDD back then and a PDD today makes sense for the use of this property. as to the exact layout and the number of units and the height of the units and those specifics, I think we work those out as we go through the seeker process and the design review.
So with regard to density, however, this is the point in time where if you have concerns about density, that you ought to make those recommendations to the town board, because when they adopt the PDD, if they adopt the PDD, that's when they're going to establish the density, right?
Maximum density.
Maximum density, yeah. Thanks for that clarification, maximum density.
I guess I think the density is based somewhat on some discussions we had last time. You know, the issue of school impacts was brought up, the issue of traffic was brought up. All those can be influencing the density that's being proposed, and we don't have answers to those questions yet. Does that mean that this parcel isn't best used as PDD? I think, once again, I think those are resolved as we go through the process. But yeah, I guess if the board has to establish a maximum, that's certainly a number to pay attention to, but if we qualify it that way and decide that may be too high of a number, then we can come down from that.
I would suggest that it would be dependent on the layout, how it works on the site. If they can reconfigure the layout to satisfy other concerns we may have, density may fall out accordingly. But, I mean, there's a couple things in here that, for instance, the setback from the buffer between the light industrial and the housing is greatly diminished with this current proposal. And walkability, that can be resolved, I think, but,
Right.
Buffering and
I
things like
agree.
that,
I guess I was just wondering if we were locking ourselves into the specific design or if we had, flexibility. I guess I'm thinking we have some flexibility.
If I may?
Sure.
Yep. Do I have to say my name again?
Peter.
So Peter Marsh from BMA. Just to answer your question, Scott, in the PDD zoning district, it's very clear it lays out the 2 steps and the reason for it. We're in step 1. But it says one of the reasons that the process is the way it is to allow, or it says preserve the town planning board's opportunity to consider, potentially modify, and approve the detailed site plan. It's very clear. That answers your question. This does not lock it in.
Right.
It's the way this process is set up was because it says this process, the first bullet item provides the town board an opportunity to consider the suitability of both the mix of principal uses and the general approach proposed for development of a planned development district. That's the purpose of the step we're in. And then it goes on, it also says it preserves the town board's right.
Right.
Also, which is when we get into step 2, seeker, drainage, traffic, tweak it. Joe, your comment about buffers, exactly. That's where we, for lack of a better term, massage the layout. And I think Wes was correct too, though, that there does have to be a discussion about density. And typically what we've seen is, an up to number or a maximum number, knowing the design in step 2 will finalize that number.
And I did ask Wes to include the comparison between the drumlins density across the road and the proposed density that you guys have here, which is stated.
And actually, I came up with the same numbers. So.
You're engineers, that's a good thing. Thank you, Peter, I appreciate that.
Yep.
And I guess the PDD zoning designation makes sense just from the standpoint of it being a form of zoning that allows for flexibility versus R1, R2, R whatever. Having done some of these in the past, I think flexibility is a good thing. Otherwise, you'd have to be going to the zoning board, and getting variances for this and variances for that. So I think from a design standpoint, it offers a lot of flexibility. I think we should keep that in mind as we see the application come forward.
So what I don't want to get lost in this conversation is the light industrial building. There's nothing been kind of noted about that in this application. It says it's part of the PDD, but it's its own parcel, actually two parcels when you look at it. And this is this thing that's been troubling me a little bit, guys, is you have a parking lot for a light industrial building that's in the village on its own parcel. And I don't know how those interact. You know, how do you guarantee that if you change from a particular use in that building to another one, which is much more intense, that now you've kind of cornered yourself to that size lot because you put all this residential housing on the balance of the property. Right now, you could expand parking and do all kinds of things with a light industrial site because you have the room. As soon as you shut off the balance of that planned development district from further expansion or a change in use, if you will, of that building, say it's an office building that requires 3 times as much parking, that'd be great to have that business, but I don't think you have room for it. Or at least you're locking yourself from being able to utilize the property for increased parking, and part of it's in the village. I don't know if that makes a difference, but I mean, we've seen applications where we've taken parcels from the village and the town on the border and moved lot lines so that they're in the village or in the town to accommodate a desire for a use as proposed. And Steve Mancini was here earlier. This one up 96 is what I'm talking about. So how would you see that in here as part of the plan development? So you could look at that, you know, help me answer that question. That's something I had, it's in the back of my mind as a potential problem for the light industrial portion of the mixed-use plan development district. Anybody else got any comments? I'm doing a lot of talking.
I have a question, and I think it's a question for Wes. Is PDD zoning granted only if there is a mixed use, or can it be a single use?
I've got a couple different theories on that. So, but let's look at the regulation, because that's the guide, right? Yeah, where did it go?
And I guess as part of that question is, you know, does that light industrial building as part of this property, does it have to be there in order for this zoning designation to happen? Or would this zoning designation happen regardless of whether that building was there?
Or conversely, if it's a PDD and you've got this light industrial portion of it, always that way, or could they demolish it and add more
Right,
townhomes?
right.
So here's a paragraph. It's not the one I was looking for, but it says, planned development districts are zoning districts created for a compatible mix of uses. The classification planned district is intended to hold an area of land for future development in one or more of the following categories: planned residential, planned commercial, planned light industrial, and planned recreational. So to answer your question, you know, yes, the planned development district is a tool that can allow for a mix of uses, and that's often what you might see in an urbanized area or an urban area. And also the planned development district can also be a single use.
Okay.
Sometimes I get the sense that there are folks, or someone might try to use a planned development district in a fashion to circumvent your traditional zoning, right? But I think what I've seen in cases, at least in Victor, there have been attempts to, you know, show a benefit to the town if it is a single use, right? And we've got two different types of uses here. You've got residential that are different forms. So yes, it's all the same use, residential, but you have different densities, a mix of densities in the form of structures, in the form of development, but you also have the industrial use that is part of the parcel now. So I think the planned development district makes sense in this case versus like you were comparing R1, R2, multiple residential zoning district. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, and I think we have another application tonight, right? It's for a PDD, and I was curious because the question applies to that project as well, so.
Yeah, okay.
Some communities call it PDD, some call it PUD, some call it PDD and PUD. So it just varies, and I wasn't sure how the town of Victor looked at that.
I guess one other comment, and I brought this up last time, was that at least my suggestion would be for the town to also contemplate the village proposal to have high-density housing at the corner of School and Rawson. Right, it shouldn't be done the decision shouldn't be done in a vacuum, right? Because now we're putting a lot more density basically at the same intersection.
Right.
And then the other thing is, right, we always compare what a full build-out, worst-case scenario would be of light industrial versus the as-is condition, which is basically nothing's there. So anything is incremental to, draw on the community services, the school district, the traffic, et cetera, so. And again, to your point, Joe, I mean, this is additive to the targeted full build-out of residential. It's incremental to that, and something, again, the town just has to contemplate. Do we want to continue to build out more residential above the theoretical?
So I don't know if
Target.
I don't know if I would use that word target. I think Wes was kind of clear that it's not a cap. It's
Right,
here's what we would do if we could
But
build
by
everything
changing
up
the
right now.
zoning to PDD, it would add to that
Right.
build-out capability.
Potential, yeah, it would add to the, I wouldn't say we're targeting a particular number. I think that's what.
But it changes what the total build-out
Correct.
would look like.
Then it would add to the number of total units
Again,
available.
not that
for
that's
the
good or
town.
bad, I'm just saying it
Right.
does change
Yeah,
the potential build-out for
yep, I
residential.
agree. So, any other comments?
No, I think this is a good discussion.
Yeah, it's excellent, I think. Ernie, any other thoughts?
Mine are same as Scott's, where do we have flexibility?
You might want to move to your microphone a little closer, I think people hear.
My question, the same that Scott asked, and it's been answered, so I don't have to hear it again.
Okay. Wes, anything else that you wanted to bring forward?
No, I don't think so. Hearing what Mr. Vars had to say earlier, it sounds like he might be anticipating submitting some comments as a result of this discussion. And I can add some additional language based on what I've heard tonight as well for possible action on the recommendation at the next meeting.
I guess what I'm hearing from the board is that there's not an objection to the concept. It's a matter of how it all shakes out in the long run. So with that, I guess we should move on for the next application. Wes, you've got some things to do, and
Yep.
I believe that
Well,
the
it's the
applicant does
town
as
board
well.
that's going to make the decision here.
Correct.
These are just recommendations we're making to the town board.
Correct.
So is the process, we'll get some more information for the next meeting and decide on our referral.
A referral with our comments, however they happen to shake out from what we hear from the applicant and from Wes.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Enjoy the hockey game.
Thank you.
Any idea what the score is? Is there a score yet?
It has 2-0. Panthers are down.
Oh,
Tell them why it's of interest to you.
I'm rooting for the Panthers.
On the Panthers is my possible son-in-law, so, but yeah, this is a struggle. Off to champs.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have one other application, or a item on the agenda this evening, Conifer Village at Eastview Planned Development District. The applicant is requesting to amend the Conifer Village at Eastview to include the construction of 15 new parking spaces and the construction of a new retaining wall at the west side of the parking lot.
Didn't we do this once before?
We did for the land bank.
This is a little more unusual, so, good evening.
Hi, how's it going? My name is James Ritzenthaler. I'm with Passero Associates here on behalf of Conifer. Yeah, so as you just mentioned, we have been here before. About 12 years ago, I think, was when the project was moved from senior living to market rate apartments. So we're looking at the Village East Apartments. We are at 7410 Forest Trail Road, or Forest Trail, sorry, off of Turk Hill Road. So we have the 88-unit apartment building, existing since '99, switched to market rate apartment from senior in 2010. The project was approved under PDD for the 15 land banked parking spaces at the time, back in 2010. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. We were approved for 15 land banked parking spaces. We are now before you again for PDD amendment because the previously approved 15 land banked spots were split between 10 where we show them now and then 5 farther south. Which would have required more disturbance, required, yeah, so where you see along the curve where we're currently proposing them.
Here's a laser for you if you want to point.
Is there, oh, yeah.
That might help.
So, on my sheet here, we're showing the 15 along here. Sorry.
Actually, if Susie, if you could bring up the other.
Oh, this is just the proposed site plan. I can show it up here if you guys can all see this better. Currently, we're proposing 15 along this curve here. Previously, there were 5 proposed up here and 10 along the straightaway here. That's 5 here and 10 here. That was what was previously proposed. The 10 here tends to encroach down into the stormwater management area when you get into the walls and all the foundations for those. And we decided that along this curve, putting all the 15 would be a much better option and would not encroach into the stormwater management area. So that is the plan that you see now today. We are, I don't know how to turn this thing off, sorry. But we are proposing the 15 in that spot to limit the disturbance, not require 2 walls, only require the 1 wall now, and increase our existing spaces from the 79 existing to 94 spaces now. And as I noted, we have 88 units in the building. We were previously approved for those 79 spaces, given that senior living tends to require fewer parking spaces. But as any of you may know, if you are familiar with the project or with the site, they do have parking issues currently, and tenants tend to kind of just park wherever they can find space, which ends up limiting the fire access routes and all that. So looking to improve upon the current situation out there. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have. It's a small amendment, not much to talk about really, but just open up to any questions that you guys might have.
Ernie, ready with any questions? We want to move on to Scott?
It's all coming back to me now.
You had to ask.
No, I don't see any problem with it.
So you land banked these parking stalls when this was designated to be a senior facility, and now it's not a senior facility, and you'd like to create those parking stalls that were not built? Is that the story?
Yeah, so it's been market rate since 2010, I believe. That part's not really under question. It's just now they'd like to move forward with the 15 land banked, but The problem is we'd like to put those somewhere else in a better position, and because they're not in the approved position, we have to come back.
And you already are a PDD, so this is just an amendment to that?
Just an amendment.
It makes sense to me. I don't have any more questions.
Al?
I don't have any questions or concerns with what's being proposed. I think it's more of a, I'll call it a structural engineering. What's a better fit? And so, but I have no problem basically implementing the land bank parking at the best location, whatever that may be, the original proposal or this one, so.
Okay. My biggest challenge with this one was the change in use back in 2010 kind of put you guys in between a rock and a hard spot in terms of what you had available space-wise, even if with the land banking. And you're proposing these spaces in a place different from where some of them have already been used. And now you're going to shut that area off from use to allow free-flowing traffic? Or are you leaving those on the curve? I got a laser here. Are you doing anything with this space here? Because you're putting the parking along this. How are you going to avoid, keep people from continuing to park along there if they don't?
Well, so the idea is that these spaces would obviously provide a much easier and natural parking space there than trying to parallel park along the road there, or along the edge. The idea is that those spaces would go away and would be replaced by these, because those currently do not satisfy the code for the fire access route. So
how, when you say go away, are you going to like black them out, no stripes, nothing? I mean, there's striping there now, correct?
there is striping there now, yeah.
So how would you keep people from continuing to want to use them if they see, oh, all these other spaces are full and this looks easy enough, I'll just park here?
That would have to be a question for the apartment administration, I guess. What their process would be, whether it would be ticketing, booting, towing, something like that. But the idea would be that those get blacked out. They're no longer for use, and I think the striping that exists out there, that's not per the approved plan, was more a organizational practice, I guess, where people are doing it. Let's try and at least.
Oh, yeah, you see
Yeah.
people park wherever they want to in about every situation.
Yeah,
So
so.
I guess I would offer my comments to the town board, who is going to be looking at this, and they're really asking to be lead agency, correct? So, which is not something we need to do. Lead agency, but when they review this, make sure that there's some provisions in there that a positive action will be taken to eliminate those spots that are not functioning as, that they're in the way of.
They're, not
emergency,
authorized.
yes, right. Any unauthorized parking
For
spaces
the
should be.
previously approved
Yeah,
plan.
right, that
Okay.
should be wiped out in a positive fashion. And whether, if it's painting lines and putting signs up saying no parking and all that kind of stuff, I think all that should be on there. So.
I do have one question.
Go ahead, Ernie.
I see it on the map here that you're going to be removing some trees. How many are you going to be removing, and are you going to be replacing them elsewhere?
So the area is, we are cutting into the existing tree line on the corner a bit. It's not too many large trees. We have larger caliber trees marked out on our plans. It's mostly some smaller brush that we're kind of cutting into there. We are not proposing to replace any trees because the current site is already heavily landscaped where we can, and that entire front portion is pretty steeply sloped, and then we have straight down into our stormwater ponds, and then we're basically into the road. If you look north, the property there is all wooded in that area, so there's still going to be an existing buffer between there. Just that small kind of wedge that we have to cut out to place the retaining walls.
Okay.
Itinerary?
Yep.
Joe, I think relative to your comment, and as I understand it, we turn this over to the town board, right, for their determination?
Mhm.
But it seems like the fire marshal should weigh in on
Absolutely.
fire lane and
And
the parking stalls that you mentioned. If that is a fire lane, unless my eyes are not working well tonight, which could be the case, it looks like it might be a tight fit to get a fire engine in there with those parallel
yeah,
stalls that you mentioned.
that's one of the problems they've had, I think. Yeah. Kim, if you want to,
And also, one of the town board members is a Fisher's Fire person, so I'm sure he's probably been up here trying to maneuver a fire truck.
Okay, so that's good. We're all on the same page.
yeah.
Yeah, and I can attest to the previously approved plan, sorry, it's not up there anymore, but the previously approved plan, the roads are sufficient for the 26-foot fire access road.
With a parallel parking stall?
No, no. So that's why I say the approved plan, we do not have the parallel. There are no parallel stalls that were previously approved here.
So often, a fire lane is that, it's striped or signed as a fire lane, no parking, all of
Labeled,
that.
yeah.
It's labeled.
Well, so fire lane, but it's the access to get them like in and out around there. So yeah, it's,
So I would encourage the town board to put some provisions in that change in the PDD to include positive removal of the parking spaces and inclusion of signage and other striping, I guess, or delineations stating that it's a fire lane and no parking.
Enforcement by the.
Yeah. The town gendarmes, yes. So, is there a formal recommendation?
resolution.
Oh, perfect. I knew I'd be looking for this.
Down there.
Yeah. Let's see.
sorry?
This is, yeah.
Like a sing-along.
So the town board to the planning board has essentially requested our blessing that they're retaining the lead agency status for the purpose of seeker compliance. So it sounds like we're in general agreement with that. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. And Wes also, a resolution.
Was that me?
No, that was me,
with
sorry.
Scott,
Sorry.
beautifully leaving his mic on, but hitting it with the paper at the same time. So this is a recommendation to the town board from the planning board. So I'll read that. Whereas the town board has received an application from Conifer Village, Eastview LLC, applicant seeking to amend Conifer Village and Eastview PDD, and whereas PDD amendment proposes, 1, construction of 15 new parking spaces, which were previously approved as banked parking for future development in accordance with site plans approved between May 2010 and September 2019, and 2, the construction of new retaining wall at the west side of the parking lot with a height between 1 foot and 5 feet above grade, and whereas the planning board has reviewed the proposed rezoning action as well as concept site plans and other supporting information submitted by the applicant, and whereas the planning board makes the following findings with regard to the proposed rezoning. 1, the need for the proposed development. Oh, it's 11 points again. You did this to me, Wes. You snuck it in there. All right, so in their letter of intent, the applicant has stated that the current parking demand is greater than what was anticipated during the formation of the PDD, and thus they are requesting the addition of 15 parking spaces on site. Is that the addition of, what's the net gain, I guess? Is it 15 you're adding?
Yeah, from previously approved plans of 79 spaces to our current proposed 94 with the addition of these
All right,
15.
Thank you. The applicant has attributed this increase in parking demand to the change in the site's user base from solely seniors to the general population. 2, in what respects the plan is or is not consistent with the stated purpose of the planned development district. Conifer Village at Eastview Planned Development District was created to accommodate an apartment community. The applicant is expanding an already approved secondary use, on-site parking, and is not introducing any new uses or structures within the PDD. Number 3, extent to which the plan departs from the zoning regulations formerly applicable to the property in question, including bulk density and permitted uses. The 15 parking spaces proposed as part of the subject application were already accounted for in the parking calculations during the formation of the Conifer Village at Eastview Planned Development District. This PDD was approved for 83 parking stalls and 15 land banked parking spaces. The applicant is requesting these land bank spaces be added to the existing parking supply on site. Setbacks from the northern and western property boundary will be altered as the additional parking is proposed in closer proximity to these boundary lines than the egress improvements approved during the PDD formation. Number 4, the existing character of the neighborhood and the relationship, beneficial or adverse, of the proposed development to this neighborhood. The proposed parking spaces are located in the front yard of the property in closer proximity to the roadway than the existing parking. There is no beneficial or adverse effect to the neighborhood with this configuration, as the parking was previously anticipated. Number 5, the location of principal and accessory buildings on the site in relation to one another and to other structures and uses in the vicinity, including bulk and height. Submitted application does not propose the construction or relocation of buildings on site. Number 6, the provision for pedestrian circulation and open space in the planned development. The installation of parking will decrease the amount of open space in the planned development. However, the open space being removed is unlikely to be considered usable green space due to its grade and proximity to the roadway. Number 7, the traffic circulation features within the site, including the amount of, location, and access to automobile parking and terminal loading areas. This is a critical issue to base approval of the proposed site. Traffic circulation is unlikely to be significantly altered as the additional parking is proposed along an existing path of vehicular egress interior to the site.
Would this be a spot to put some verbiage to memorialize the discussion we had around the current parking
Yeah, and
challenge?
I was thinking about adding something about improving emergency services and other large vehicle circulation, but
With positive actions to eliminate existing practices of parking.
yeah, right. So planned spaces to be eliminated shall be positively removed, either blacked out and/or striped for, there goes your generator, striped for,
Like a no-
what do we call a, no, well,
Fire lane?
fire
No
lane
parking
and
fire lane?
with no parking signs clearly delineating.
So we can pull the language that was shared earlier in the discussion, right? And
Right.
put that right in here.
Yeah, so if you can
Let's do
put that, add that into this
Sure.
from the minutes, that would be helpful.
Yep.
So,
So
anyway.
just to clarify, would you like that lane striped? Because it doesn't, it's not really.
I'm not saying striping the
Okay.
lane, I'm saying positively stripe it so that people know that they're
And/or
not to park
signage,
there.
right? No
And/or
parking,
signage,
fire
right.
lane.
I mean, you could put the words fire lane along that whole stretch
Yeah.
there without striping it.
Okay.
And you could put signs saying no parking, or one or both.
Right. I mean, what we're trying to eliminate is the current practice plus the 15 parking spots that are proposed.
Yeah, so, Wes, if you want to, I don't know if that's something that you would ask the town, once they approve this change, that it be reviewed and signed off by the town engineer prior to approval of construction, something to that effect?
Should the fire marshal sign off on it too?
We're gonna see this back at site plan too.
Okay,
So
all
the
right.
fire marshal will review it as part
All
of
right.
site plan
Okay,
application.
yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
I'm just trying to make sure we get everything down.
But yeah, at least get some reference to it in this
Yeah.
document, so.
All right, refer to planning board discussion for this date. Kim's getting frustrated with me.
I'm not. I wanted to just make sure that
Right.
it will get
Right.
reviewed
No, you're
by
right.
the fire department.
Yeah, and just like the last PDD discussion we had, or similar.
There's nothing wrong with paying attention to
Yeah.
details, Joe.
Thank you. Item 7, that's that. Item 8, the amount of traffic generated at peak hours and the provisions for adequately handling such volumes with particular reference to points of ingress and egress, potential hazards such as inadequate site distances and intersection design, and the nature and suitability of the connecting street or highway system to absorb the anticipated changes. And comment is, then the additional parking proposed is unlikely to alter the amount of traffic generated on-site, as the uses, structures, general site configuration, and number of residential units on-site are unchanged. Number 9, provision for storm sanitary and solid waste disposal and other utilities on the property adjacent to the site, as well as the site itself. Utilities are unlikely to be impacted by this application, as the uses and structures are unchanged. Number 10, proposed. Yeah, before I go to number 10, is the impervious area increased with this? And does it affect
Slightly.
drainage? I mean, it's probably designed for the additional parking spaces in terms of, storm water management and that sort of thing, I would assume.
Doesn't seem like a lot of impervious area.
Wasn't it already contemplated with the
With the
land being
banked-
parking?
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to make sure I hit everything, Wes. Agree with that?
So I think we'll be able to analyze that, right, when the site plan comes back, too.
Okay. Well, we're making the statement that it's, utilities are unlikely to be
Oh,
landscape, whatever, storm, sanitary, and solid waste disposal. So stormwater, unlikely
say-
to be impacted, well, it is,
we
but
can
not
say that
much.
utilities are unlikely to be significantly impacted.
Yeah, okay. I should do that.
And just so you know, I can speak to that, in our standard design, if we have to do stormwater we have to take into account the land banked parking into any of our stormwater calculations. And the main purpose of the shift here is that we do not impact the stormwater management area. We're going into where the hill is over here, and the boundaries of the stormwater management area are really just more into this area.
Yeah, and thank
So,
you.
We won't be removing area from that space anymore.
Okay. Proposed landscaping and signage. Applicant is not proposing the addition of any landscaping or signage. I think you are, or you will. Signage has to be for the, I don't know, it's not signage for the building necessarily. It's no parking and/or fire zone, whatever, that's signage. So you may want to modify that, Wes. It appears some mature vegetation will be removed in the northwestern portion of the site to accommodate the proposed project. Number 11, manner in which the physical design makes adequate provision for service demands, water, sewer, fire, etc. Adequate traffic control with the amenities of light, air, and visual enjoyment. Service and traffic demands are unlikely to change the uses, structures, number of residential units, points of egress, general site configuration, etc. will be unaltered. Now therefore be resolved that the Town of Victor Planning Board recommends approval of the Village East Apartment PDD amendment application. So that's a resolution amended slightly by Wes?
Yep.
And do I hear a motion?
I'll move it.
Scott's got it.
God
Second.
moves and Al seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried 4-0 with our
There you go.
recommendation to the town board. So
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
I'll see you again. Thank you. Anybody have anything else? It looks like it's 9:20. I don't hear a resolution yet.
Motion to
adjourn?
adjourn?
Yeah.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a great evening, everyone, and rest of your week.